It's going to be entirely about the era of, what do you think? Good feelings. And of course, those good feelings, ironically, are going to start to diminish once we get to the sectional differences, because you know it's coming. Dum, dum, dum. The Civil War. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember, pause it, get it down, listen to me. You never know what I'm going to ask on these note quizzes, okay? So make sure you're listening. Pause it, westward movement. All right, so the first thing you wrote down, okay, westward movement, okay? I want you to circle that west in particular. Of course, we are going to be able to move westward because we just purchased Louisiana. We have this idea, manifest what? Destiny. You might want to get that down too. Americans are marching quickly towards the west. It is actually extremely hard with disease, the loneliness. This is, of course, when you hear about the dreaded Donner Party. If you don't know about the Donner Party, maybe Google it. It's pretty gross, disgusting, but that's how hard westward movement was. Frontier people are very individualistic, though, superstitious, and sometimes they're ill-informed. They think it's going to be like Little House on the Prairie. Y'all ever heard of that before? Not so much. A little bit a harsher time period. Westward movement definitely did mold the environment. You'll see a lot of geographical changes. You might want to start this idea that tobacco exhausted the land, especially when you keep planting over and over and over again. So they're going to need another crop to make money off of. What do you think it's going to be? Question mark? What? Oh, it's going to be cotton. You might want to get that one down too. Okay. Now, population growth. Y'all don't have this slide, but I just want you to take a look at it. You'll notice 1620, this is Mayflower Compact right here. Taking a look from 1620 to 1860, 5 years before the Civil War, the population growth in the United States is unbelievable. Okay? Massive amounts of people are coming to the country, and you are going to see the population density also change. The word density, you might want to write that down in between these slides. Population density, okay, is how many people you have in a given square mile. So if it's not very dense, 2 or fewer, not a lot of people. If it's very dense, 90 or more, the purple, obviously that's going to probably be your port areas or your cities. Something to look at. This is 1790. Take a look at this change. I'm going to blow your mind. 1790, 1830. Unbelievable, right? Now, the very next slide is something called, nativism. Go ahead and pause it, get it down. Now, nativism, okay, massive vocab word here. Super important. You got to circle it. Nativism is anti-immigration, okay? A nativist is someone who fears an invasion of immigrants. The reason they're going to fear them, want to make sure you understand this. They're scared of immigrants because they're going to take jobs, apparently. They also will take and they will commandeer certain neighborhoods. Eventually, you'll have ethnic regions in cities that's not going to be well liked by the nativist. And eventually, they're going to form an American party. You're going to be writing that down. The American Party. And sometimes we will refer to this as, this would be a perfect quiz question. We call it the Know Nothing Party, as in KNOW nothing party. Nativist is going to be something that are going to start popping up because as immigration increases, the tensions around immigration will also increase. Not much different than in 2015, although a lot of the times back then they felt it was their right to this country. But then again, I always tell you, this country is a melting pot. The only real people that could tell everybody to get off are the Native Americans, and how many times have we taken care of them? Kind of interesting to see there. Now, the American system, on this one, I want to make sure you get this because real quickly, I have 2 pictures of 2 gentlemen, but you can't see one of the first ones in your slides because it just shows the end slide. So first thing you have is Henry Clay. I want you to write that name out beside this slide. Henry Clay. Okay, congressman from Kentucky. Then the next person, and this is the guy that's on your slide, is John C. Calhoun. You're going to want to make sure you write his name down as well. Now let me get this slide down so you can pause it, get it down, and I'll talk about it in a second. All right, the American system. Massively important. In fact, might even want to put a star by this slide. Maybe put a little essay on there or something because I'm going to ask you about this. The American system. I have taken and I have underlined internal improvements, and I've put an arrow out here and I put the word infrastructure. Say it with me. Infrastructure. Did you say it? I know if you didn't say it. Infrastructure. You want to know what infrastructure is? You should want to know. Infrastructure is like highways, roads, canals, transportation system is what it comes down to. So you need to know this. Now the Henry Clay system, created kind of and thought up by Clay and Calhoun, are going to be a set of transportation systems, roads, canals, steamships, rivers. Basically, it's internal improvements hoping to make the United States better through internal movement of trade. Railroad will be the big one in the end. Now, down here at the bottom, you wrote to provide economic growth, or I'm going to call it economic nationalism. Remember, when you write economic nationalism, what is the root word of nationalism? Nation. It's something that needs to improve our nation economically. Money, right? Americans need to be buying American goods, are their arguments, Clay and Calhoun. They want America to be self-sufficient. I love that word, self-sufficient. Okay? And you're writing that down. That means we should be able to take care of who? Ourselves. They're also going to suggest, and these are the little known details of the American system that they come up with in the early 1800s. These might be the ones you miss on the test. They want a protective tariff. We know what a tariff is, a tax on imports. And they also want to reinstitute a second bank of the United States. They believe it will make America stronger. Now, down here at the very bottom of this page, before you flip over, I want you to notice the main goal of the American system. You guys just heard me say it. It's American economic growth. It is improving the internal trading in the United States. So the main waterway that we are going to build in the early times, you've got a lot of waterways right here that you're looking at. The main one will be the Erie Canal. Good quiz question, because you might not have heard it unless you were listening to me. Now, a canal is, of course, a waterway like this. You put a boat on it, you put goods on it, you get them from A to B. The more waterways you have, well, now we can go from B to C, C to D. Now I can sell tons more stuff because I'm selling to the people in point A, point B, point C, and point D instead of just in one place. Now the other one I've got, the main roadway, and this one just might be one that you want to make sure you get down. Don't even think you have a slide for this one. Nope, you sure don't. So down here, main roadway, something called the National Road. It was begun in 1811, completed in 1832. It connected Maryland over here to Illinois over here. It was built by the U.S. government. But here's the deal. If you take a look at where they built this road, what do you notice is all along that road? Massive cities. Because every place we put a transportation system, okay, you are going to see population increase. So some of these, Indianapolis, Springfield, Columbus, those are the capital cities now in 2015. So that'll tell you how important that road is. And let me emphasize road. It was not exactly like your 4-lane highway with McDonald's on the either side of it, okay? We're just talking about a road, but back then, that's just as important. Okay, next slide, flip it over, pause it, get it down. Now, after we do waterways, we do roads, the Railroad Revolution is going to really begin in the 1850s. 1850 to 1860, the RR, Railroad, proved the most significant development towards a national economy in the American system. Americans demanded a transcontinental railroad. Say that with me. Transcontinental. Now, you take and you want to dice that up. You're talking about trans across the continent, right? All the way to California. They want it completed by 1860s, really. They'll end up completing it in 1869, right after the Civil War. Now, if you take a look at this map, and again, this isn't on your notes, but it is on this slide, and I'm going to hold you accountable. I want you to just maybe out beside this slide, write down what area of the country, north or south, has more railroads? What is that? What did you just say? The north? Or did you say south? I hope you said the north. Because the north is blanketed in railroads, which means the people in the north can get things from A to B to C very easily. It also means they can make more money. But when the Civil War comes, they can also get soldiers from A to B to C. They can get bullets from A to B to C. They can, win the Civil War. And the railroads were a huge aspect of that. Now, next slide. Pause it. Get it down. Industrial Revolution. Let's talk about it. The technical definition you wrote down is a shift from goods made by hand, circle that, to making them in a factory in a mass-produced scenario. Now, technological innovations are going to bring production from the farmhouses to the factories. But as this production transition kind of happens, we are going to see this beginning of the U.S. factory system. Now, where are the railroads? That's where the factories are going to be, in the north. It's a very slow beginning, but I have a question for you. If I were to ask you to make something by hand all day long, it would take you to make one, let's say we said a baby doll. You have to carve the wood. You have to chisel out the face. You have to sew together the dress. You have to put the hair on. You have to paint the face on, etc. One baby doll would take you all day, but what if you did an assembly line? Somebody does the chiseling, somebody does the dress, somebody does the hair, somebody does the paint. By the time this baby doll is to the third person, another baby doll's already begun. So with that, production increases, and when you produce more, you make more money, and everybody's happy. Now, that's going to be eventually. The number one thing we take and look at, especially at this point in time, are some of the technological innovations that's going to help not just the factory system, but the South. Pause it, get it down. You already know it. Of course, it's Eli Whitney. Okay, Eli Whitney, invention which changed the South, the cotton gin. Man, do I really need to talk about this? Probably not. Cotton gin, revolutionized cotton industry, mass production and interchangeable parts. You see this part right here, mass production and interchangeable parts? That's what I want to focus on here. I don't want to talk about the cotton gin just yet, although of course you know it's coming. Mass production and interchangeable parts means that now these factory machines, they are not one solid piece of metal. We can take and have interchangeable parts in them to where if a machine breaks, I order a new part, I fix the part, now we're back on track for production. It's very important to America's Industrial Revolution, this idea of interchangeable parts, because otherwise it's just one machine that's one piece. You do interchangeable parts, it really, really speeds up production. He actually, maybe a good quiz question, starts the idea of interchangeable parts when it comes to a rifle. He starts kind of looking at it when it comes to guns. So that's kind of interesting to see, but really it's going to make a difference in the factory setting. Now, I do, of course, have to talk about the cotton gin. Now, I don't really have any place for you to write this down, so you might just have to write it next to this slide. Okay, the cotton gin was invented in 1793, and it makes cotton picking 50 times more effective. So it means what we used to pick in 1 hour, we now can take and do 50 times that in 1 hour, which means cotton is extremely valuable now because there's so much of it. You would think that this would decrease the need for slaves, but if cotton's more expensive, that means the slaves are more valuable, and the South will not be parting with them. Now, here are, down at the bottom, just some kind of thrown in there inventors I need you to know. Robert Fulton, I need you to write down the steamboat. His first steamboat that's, of course, going to revolutionize transportation up the Mississippi is actually called the Clermont. That's Robert Fulton. Not only water travel, but really trade up and down the waterways. Pretty important. The next one I have here are Elias Howe and Isaac Singer. Anybody ever heard of something called the sewing machine? That's going to massively change the northern textile industry. Yes, that's the word I just said. Textile. Textile. So that's an invention you need to know about. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Oh, of course, who has seen the green and yellow hats? John Deere, steel plow, of course, tractor system. Now, down at the very bottom, even though his name's a little cut off at the bottom, there's Cyrus McCormick. And this is the McCormick Reaper. This is going to be how they mass harvest grain. So remember, anytime we harvest more or we harvest quicker with new technology, more harvest, more money, everybody's happy. There you go. And then the last one, well, one of the last ones I have is Samuel F.B. Morse. Anybody ever heard of the Morse Code? Okay, 1840, the telegraph. Now that's going to be another secret weapon of the North, because they have a lot of railroads and they have a lot of telegraph lines. So I might ask you that question. In all reality, here's a really good piece of propaganda. Inventors. The one that, of course, I have down that I didn't even have a slide on it, but you know it, is Edison, the light bulb. Now, long story short on the light bulb, you want to know why it's important? It's not important because now you can see my pretty face all the time easier. It's important because now I can turn the lights on at night in factories, which means factories don't just produce during the daytime, they produce at night. More production, more money, more happiness. Tune in for video 2.